Good morning to you. Mark Stott with HurricaneTrack here. It is Tuesday now, the 26th day of August 2025. So very glad to have you tune in to today's update. Back from the Outer Banks and my coverage of the impacts from Hurricane Erin. And it's time to look ahead, see what might be coming. How long will this quiet period? Yeah, we have Fernand out there, but that's not bothering much of anybody at all. Maybe a few shipping interests out in the Atlantic. So other than that, pretty quiet as we end the month. Or will it be? It looks like there could be some signs of something picking up again sooner rather than later. So I figured we will address that. Plus, you can see all the tabs I've got open today. Quite a few other things to talk about, including Thursday evening. I'm going to go ahead and pitch this to you now. Thursday evening, the 28th of August, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, I will be joined by Jesse Bass, my longtime friend and colleague, Mike Watkins from South Florida, Jesse's in Virginia. The three of us are going to get together over Zoom and then broadcast it to you fine folks over YouTube and go back 20 years and talk about the birth of what we now have as this worldwide phenomenon of live streaming weather. We were the first to bring it to everybody, and we're going to go back through that history, how it evolved, really a deep dive. And if you like a long format podcast setting, Thursday night will be definitely for you. And if you miss it, that's okay. Of course, it will be archived. I'll talk about it more at the end of today's update. But we got a lot to discuss, so let's get discussing, shall we? First, this post from Ben Knoll, I thought this was very interesting here, apropos, as they say. Hurricane Erin was not far from being another Sandy. That is absolutely true. I hope people realize how lucky we got on the east coast of the United States that these little pieces of energy chewed away that ridge and allowed Erin to turn like that, because what a beast. Other than Sandy, Erin was the biggest Atlantic hurricane to track so close to or make landfall in the United States since at least 1964. And, of course, some of that data coming from the ever-fantastic Michael Lowry. And, yeah, Erin's impact could have been much worse. It really, really is important to keep that perspective in mind. What an enormous hurricane that was. And we are all grateful that we're not picking up the pieces any more than we already are from the surf conditions. All right? So just putting that out there. All right, so, look, I got to show you this, too, because holy cow, I'm a big fan of the Desert Southwest monsoon, and I came out for about 10 days this year with my friend Scott, and we ended up, covering a couple days of few thunderstorms down in southeast Arizona, and then the majority of the rest of that 10 days was spent covering the fires, mainly the Dragon Bravo fire. But that right there, I got to be out there for something like that. That's really hard to time. And you can't just go sit out there for 6 weeks and wait for that to happen. So I'm going to go back through and look at some of the conditions that led up to this. Hint there, right? You figure nature out and then try to time it where I can hopefully get on a plane the day before and get out there for that. My good friend also lives out there in Scottsdale, Tom Casal. Known him for over 20 years. He got some video of it as well that I shared with Fox Weather, but that is absolutely incredible. Man, who needs AI generated anything related to weather when you got Mother Nature there providing all of the spectacular VFX that you could ever want? Thought I would show you that because, dude, that is insane. And I got to be there for it one day with some of our tech. These videos that people got, though, I mean, hats off to you. Terrific stuff. All right, tropics time. There's Fernand sitting out in the Atlantic, 45-mile-per-hour wind, dying away, getting sheared. That will be that. Nothing else over the next several days. But I think that could start to change. We'll get into that. In the East Pac, whoa! Hey, where's the upward motion? There it is. It's in the Central and Eastern Pacific right now. And that's a big clue. All of this energy right here that's creating all of those colors for you there, at least the yellows and the orange, and the red with Juliet, all of that energy is going to be moving to the east, right? And that's going to set off a change in the Atlantic. So we're not going to have, it does appear, a very long window of quietness in terms of something to track. I don't want to imply that we have any threats to land, because thus far there's absolutely nothing to suggest that, but we're always on the watch, right? That is what we do. So what are we watching for? A few things to point out. There is our sheared Fernand, and again, that's going to head on out into the Atlantic even further, and that will be that. Little piece of energy down here that is always worth watching. You never know where it ends up, somewhere over here in the coming days. Sure, you don't ignore it. You don't sleep on this kind of stuff. That, my friends, is a welcome cold front to most. I guess I can enjoy it. I like the hot, humid weather, and I like it when it's 110 out in the southwest. It just goes with the territory, but that's just me. A little fall weather won't be so bad. Just fall itself, I've never been into it. It's kind of a boring season, or at least it can be. But anyway, that is a cold front. This will eventually make its way down and stall out. And we got to watch along the boundary that sets up for potential mischief. You never know. Again, being very clear, there's nothing indicated in the modeling. This, however, is another bout of dry, dusty air that has made its way off the continent of Africa, ejected out into the Atlantic through the African Easterly Jet, the AEJ, and that is going to provide a pretty stable environment for the time being. Examining the vorticity side of things, we can sort of change perspective quite literally and see what's going on beneath the clouds, through the clouds. There's the vorticity signature for Fernand. This is Juliet out in the East Pac. The Atlantic's got a big area of green, nothing real. Looks like that green thing, maybe I'm seeing things from Ghostbusters, that ghost goblin thing that was eating the pie or whatever it was off the tray there in the hotel. Anyway, Mark needs some more sleep maybe. But that's lots of low-level, low-grade energy. It's at the bottom of the scale. That's the point. I'm just excited to be back, to be honest with you, and a lot of big stuff coming up with us and whatever. So I'm jacked. I'm excited. You can tell. South of the Cape Verde Islands, Cabo Verde Islands, whichever you prefer. Hey, call it what you want. There is some energy there, but that's about it. There's nothing out there to really hang your hat on, quite literally, or to blow your hat off, I guess, except Fernand up here, but most shipping interests would avoid that, even as sheared as it may be. Now, this is interesting for a lot of reasons. I updated you guys on this while I was out on the Outer Banks, a couple of different days that I was out there. What we're seeing here is probably, and again, I am not a fortune teller. I don't see the future. I'm not omnipotent. But logic dictates, as well as what we know about past fingerprints for what gives us a very active hurricane season, this starts to fit that pretty darn well. But sea surface temperatures alone, of course, do not give us hurricanes. There's a lot more to it. But let's look at what we have. This is kind of back to the what we know versus what we don't know. Well, what we know is, we're really close to La Nina. Officially, the Climate Prediction Center has a La Nina watch, whatever that means. Again, humans need to label things and categorize things. It makes life simpler, absolutely. So there is a La Nina watch in effect, and for good reason. From the west coast here of South America, all the way out to, hey, look at that, just past the date line at 180 degrees longitude, a fairly cold Pacific relative to normal, right? That is very, very important. So not only do we not have El Nino, but it is looking like we're back towards La Nina. So we're going to put a check there as being quite favorable. Now, in the Atlantic, this area of cold anomalies is courtesy mainly from Erin, and a little bit now Fernand up there doing its part, small though. But this is really important because a lot of that positive anomaly has been just whacked out of there, eroded away. Now the focus can be in the deep tropics and a very typical or more typical horseshoe look to the positive anomaly pattern. In fact, it's quite warm here, just west and southwest of the British Isles and between the Azores and the UK, right? And that's really interesting. I'm going to have to hopefully I won't bother him, but touch base with our good friend Phil Klotzbach and get some details about what he's thinking about all of this. Has the sea surface temperature pattern now shifted? Interesting that Erin had, minimal impact versus what it could be, but is it setting the stage now, leaving behind a much more favorable pattern so that we pay the price later? I don't want to get too hyperbolic about it and too speculative, but we think about these things, those of us that watch this stuff as much as we do. We really do. And it's not to drum up something that isn't there. You look at that and you go, wow, that's a lot more favorable than if everything is colored in orange and red in the Atlantic and there's no real imbalance, that everything's warm. Now the pronounced warmth is generally focused south of 30 latitude for sure, and a lot of it south of 20. And I think that could be very important going forward. So we'll see. We'll see if that hunch is right. That's the good thing. We'll know. It could be bad, and I'll tell you, like when we get to December 1st, I'll say, look, we had the pattern, nothing happened, and my hunch was wrong, and why was it wrong? Definitely want to address when you're right and you're wrong, all right? But if I'm right, it's going to possibly mean that we got a lot of problems coming up. So zooming in on it, there's that cold wake left behind from Erin. Just remarkable how that works out. But in the same line of thinking, all of these anomalies in here, 1 to 2, close to 3 degrees Celsius above the long-term average, and we are heading into peak season faster and faster as each day goes by. Climatologically, you would expect to see more activity. All right, also related to all of this, the Nino 3.4 index, that La Nina, I mean, we're getting close there. We're almost to minus 0.8, right? We're very close to that. This is from Dr. Cowan's charting that he does to graph everything over at the Tidbit site. So it seems like it's coming together. The models are seeing it as well. We have definitely plummeted in recent weeks. Plummet even further, it looks like, as we get into really the beef part of the season there. And hurricane season peak really goes from late August through pretty much the end of October, right? We know that, especially lately, late September through mid to late October, we've had our rear ends handed to us. It's not been fun at all. And will that be happening? Again, we'll see. This certainly favors it. That's impressive. That cooling, that'll help reduce the shear in the western part of the basin, at least theoretically. Again, I definitely want to touch base with Phil and see what he thinks about all of this, if he is so inclined. So, the graphic today, the thumbnail, how long will the quiet last? Some of the keys to this are what I already showed you, what we know. What we don't know is obviously where we're going to end up. Nobody knows exactly how things are going to end up. Of course not. But we do have some tools that help us to figure things out. Subseasonal tools like the MJO, things like that. And there are different sites and ways to visualize the MJO. There are also what we call convectively coupled Kelvin waves, a smaller window of opportunity of energy and favorability, more moisture, reduction in shear, all that kind of stuff. I've often said that the CCKWs are like Red Bull for the tropics, whereas the MJO is like a more sustained, nutritious meal, right, or a meal plan. So how's the MJO looking? Well, right now I've got it selected on the INSEP based off the GEFS, and it's all over the place. It is just completely wackadoodle. Like, what? It could be anywhere. Well, that's not very good. All right, well, what about the ECMWF? Much more focused and, what's the word I'm looking for? Concentrated, right? And it's not all over the place. So here's where we are, right there. And it is forecast to go on into this circle. The circle we call the null phase, where there's not much discernible MJO activity anywhere. Then a majority of the European guidance there, the ECMWF, brings the MJO out back into phases 8 and 1 and 2 that really favor, really 8 and 1, the Western Atlantic and Africa. Upward motion, that's what all this means. So you look at that and you think, upward motion, forcing in the atmosphere, a much more favorable pattern. The inset-based stuff, not so much. I don't know what's up with that. The Japanese, the JMA, which does really well with this kind of stuff, is in agreement with what the Euro is showing at phases 8, 1, and 2 over the coming days and presumably next couple of weeks. So as a result, let's go see what the models are showing. And I am, for the sake of this discussion, encapsulating everything that I'm talking about here, the MJO and how things could look down the road and how the global models, these numeric models, can react to something like an MJO passage that these models can detect in their deterministic output. Let's see what the models are showing. So remember, the inset-based stuff, GEFS, all that, not showing much discernible. It's everywhere, should they? Look like a squash spider. So this is the current, and what I was meaning to get to is we're going to go out the full 384 hours, or whatever it is, and I'm going to show you. So here's where we are now. There's Fernand, a little dent there, tropical wave, trough coming down, big fat ridge sitting over the Atlantic, some energy over Africa. Pretty easy to pick all of that out. Drop me out of the frame and let's run through the next 2 weeks. So what's the GFS show? This is the 0Z run last night. Not much. We're already out at 10 days, right? Keep going, keep going, keep going. Boom. We're at September the 11th. That's a Thursday. Peak day of hurricane season, plus or minus, and not a tropical cyclone to be found anywhere from Africa all the way over to eastern Mexico and Texas. Wow. So let's look at the upper pattern. What's it look like at 200 millibars? Not horrible. Like, pretty good anticyclonic flow out here. Deep easterlies, coming through. A little bit of a sideways tut looking deal right there. Another little tut deal there. So this is like cyclonic flow. That's not good. More of a little trough there. And then southwesterly winds here. Not very favorable at all in the western part of the basin. Remember all that. What about the Euro? Remember, the Euro is the one that shows a more favorable MJO pattern. Let's run that out to the same time frame, shall we? Or at least it's close to it. This will get us to 360. So the Euro, you can already see it. By day 10, there's something approaching the islands. I didn't mean to do that. I was trying to do that. There it is right there by day 10. That's already a big deal, a big difference there, right? And we keep moving this on out even further, and we're at 360 hours, literally the peak day of hurricane season climatologically, and we would expect to have something, and lo and behold, on the Euro, we do have two somethings out there. My point is, this is matching up with what the MJO shows. Let's look at it in the upper levels at the 200 millibar, and it's quite a bit different overall. Pretty favorable pattern, diffluent flow over the top of this, so that makes sense. It's different than what the GFS is showing. Now, at that time frame, of course, I'd expect it to be pretty different, but these are the clues that we can watch. That's my point. And with each passing day that we get more and more into that MJO coming into the Atlantic, and remember, we are seeing activity in the Eastern Pacific, so it stands to reason that all of this will eventually migrate its way into the Atlantic, and so my money would be on this makes the most sense to me, considering everything that we know now. GFS and the inset-based products for the MJO seem to be a little lost. So whether or not it looks exactly like this on September 10th matters little. It is the pattern change that we would expect to start seeing in the next 3 or 4 days at the most. And then the other models will start to pick up on it, these deterministic models, right? Right. All right, so that's what I will be watching. What I want you to watch, and I really hope you can tune in for this, as I have shown today, I'm very excited about it, 20 years since Katrina, but it's not just the Katrina story. It is the 20-year anniversary of our little group here bringing live video over IP, like streaming from a laptop and a camera in the vehicle, and then these remote cameras. Nobody was doing that in 2005 for weather. and, where you were using non-satellite, non-microwave, like an air card, like streaming over broadband, whatever you want to call it. We were the ones that did this, and the story behind it, how it all came together, is exciting. It's funny in some instances, and we're going to go over it until people have to go to bed, whatever. They'll start calling, I got to go to bed, Mark. I could do it for hours and hours. In fact, I have on my podcast series over on Patreon called Stories from the Hurricane Highway. Some of these episodes would give Joe Rogan a run for his money for how long you can go. Some of them are like over 3 hours, these episodes. I don't think we're going to do 3 hours Thursday night, because I know Jesse has to hit the sack at some point. He's got to get up at like 5 a.m. I'm not too far from that because I got kids to get ready for school still. But anyway, look, come on. Thursday night, join in. 8 o'clock. It's going to be on YouTube. It's going to be a lot of fun. We'll go back through the history. And you never know, might be able to pull in an extra guest or two as a surprise during that evening. So no hurricanes out there now to screw this up. No delays anymore. It's happening Thursday night, 8 p.m. Every time I do a video this week, I will remind you of it. All right? And we'll talk about some other things equally exciting during that broadcast. So be ready. Mark it on your calendars. 8 o'clock Thursday night. All right, that's it from me for today. We covered a lot. Great to be back in the office. Big thank you, by the way, to all the different people, Dan and Brad and anybody that let us put cameras on their property out there in the Outer Banks. I know it's hard for you, and we appreciate being able to show the world what's happening, and your cooperation and participation in the project that way really did make it possible. And everybody on our back-end team that makes me look good and makes the stuff look good, the product, it worked, and we're going to be really, really ready for when something's coming, and we'll be as ready as we could ever be. 20 years now after we started it. What a remarkable story. That word again, remarkable. Anyway, have a good day, remarkable day at that for this fine Tuesday. I am Mark Sutter. Thanks for tuning in. You better believe it. I'll talk to you again tomorrow.